My name is Benoît Hespel. I'm working at Proximus ADA, which is one company of the Proximus group, focusing on artificial intelligence and also cybersecurity, offering those kind of services to the Proximus group, its partners, but also its customers. And today I'm sharing the stage, and I'm very happy to be here with my dear colleague, Dirk.
Thank you, Benoît. Hi everyone, my name is Dirk. I work at Codit, and at Codit we build highly customized cloud solutions built on top of Microsoft Azure, ranging from integration over applications to highly scalable data platforms.
Thank you, Dirk. So I think one of the main reasons you are here today with us is because you are also convinced that AI is there. AI is a reality, AI is there in our daily lives. And just to get started, to get a bit warmer after lunch and so on, I will ask you one simple question. If you think that you are not using AI on a daily basis, I will just ask you to raise your hand. So please do so now, if you hear me well. That's also a test to see if the audio is working fine. So if you are not using AI on a daily basis, raise your hand. Okay. I would say, 10 people, which, okay, fine. Let me try to, just to make sure that we are all talking about the same thing, here are a few examples of where AI can be part of your daily life. So when you get recommendations on Amazon, Spotify, you name it, where you are unlocking your phone maybe with facial recognition, when you are also using digital assistants or ChatGPT to help you in your work or personal life, that's all AI. And now let me ask you again, same question. Do you think you are not using AI on your daily basis, on your daily life? Please again, raise your hand if that's still the case. No one. Okay, great.
That's nice.
So I don't need to convince you more than AI is there. And then the question is, okay, AI is there. And probably if we were thinking like 20, 30 years back, were we thinking we would be at this stage today with AI everywhere, with ChatGPT and so on? Probably not. And if you ask your parent or grandparent, I guess that's also the same thing. Here I just want you also to highlight the fact that AI is pushing things further. And sometimes what was science fiction a few years back is now reality. And I don't know if some of you know about Black Mirror. So that's a famous TV show. I see a few people nodding. So, and that's taken. Well, that's one example taken from that TV show, where, for those who doesn't know about it, the goal was to have an app, and everyone would have the same app and could score everyone. So like, at this moment, you could all score me, for example, and my score will be live updated, and we all have a score attached to us, between 1 and 5 stars. You can already see the problem with that approach, right? Because some people would get very high scores and they might get access to specific services or level of services, and the ones with a lower score might be a bit excluded or left aside. And obviously that's already like, that's not very nice. And that was the whole point of that TV show, to really push technology so far that you see a bit the limits of it, and maybe you are not feeling comfortable with that. And I haven't talked about AI yet, but imagine now, instead of us scoring each one of us, it would be computers, cameras, sensors, all those devices could score you. For example, your smartwatch, just saying, oh, you haven't done exercise this week, well, I will put a bad score to you because that's not good for your health. So you see a bit how that can derive and go to some big risk for our fundamental rights and also for the society. So the question that we should all ask ourselves is, where do we all want to go with AI, and especially? So Dirk, where do we all want to go?
Yes, where do we all want to go? Now, I just checked my watch, and apparently I already have 5,000 steps thanks to the large venue we have here. But before we have a look at where we want to go, let's take a step back into time. About 20 years ago, where this slogan popped up, data is a new fuel, data is a new oil, data is a new gold. There are a few different variants in this, and that is still true today, of course. That data is driving our digital economy, and in order for data really to make sure that it can run our economy, it needs a powerful engine. And AI can be one of those engines. But in today's world, we are focused, of course, on sustainability, on making sure that we approach things in an ethical way. And then traditional engines are not enough. And that is where responsible AI comes in. Now, to be honest, being a technical guy, or mostly focused on technical things, I initially thought, well, responsible AI, that is something that the data scientists and the business translators will take care of. And me as a technical guy, I just provide the infrastructure for that. But when you come to think about it, if you look at the electrical engine, it needs a specific infrastructure to make sure that the electrical engines can be charged, and that's a different infrastructure from the traditional one. So when you consider building data platforms, it's still important to have a robust data platform that is scalable, that is automated, that is secure, is in place, but you also need to think about a few other things. Now let's have a look at the concepts that are important in responsible AI. And we start off with fairness, making sure that the systems that you build treat people in a fair way. Reliability and safety, and making sure that the systems behave consistently over different usages and are safe, that do not harm the people that are using it. Privacy and security, making sure that you protect the data that is from the users and that you ensure the privacy of whatever is put into that system, and that you secure the system from breaches. And then inclusiveness, making sure that your systems are accessible and usable and valuable for people across different communities, across different demographies. Now, beneath these pillars, there are two very important concepts. First of all, transparency, which I think is one of the most important things. In fact, making sure that an AI system, when it makes a decision, that it is clear where that decision comes from. And making sure that if the system is transparent, that will give you trust from the users. And the last one is accountability, making sure that when a system is built, the organization, the developers, all people involved take their accountability in that process and ensure that the system is built in an ethical way and conform the regulations that are in place. Now, when you follow this framework, this allows you to build AI solutions that are not only innovative, but are also adhering to the social values that you need.
Indeed, thank you, Dirk. Thanks a lot. I think now it's a bit clearer for all of you what we mean by talking about responsible AI, so that's the key dimension, but still, it might look like a bit theoretical still, right? So let me now zoom on some cliché or some risk that can happen if you neglect some of those important pillars. And the first cliché I want to go over is that AI knows everything. Maybe you heard it, maybe you were thinking about that as well yourself. And the thing is, I mean, why it's not totally true is because when you build a model, you build it on a certain data set. You give him a certain scope, you give him access to a certain history, and it will learn from it. And I see a few people smiling here, looking at the slide. So it's just the same as for a child. I mean, a child, he learns by experience, by seeing some context, and by reacting the same way that he saw others do. That's a bit the same for an AI system. And it's very important to keep into account those aspects of inclusiveness and fairness in that training to make sure that also the model will behave accordingly. Well, that example is funny. You might say, what's the point of paying attention to that? But then there are some really concrete things, like here with Gemini, where if you ask, okay, can you generate me some pictures of a Nazi soldier at World War II, and it comes with such images, you can already see that, I mean, that's not totally true neither, right? And maybe that was over-exaggerated to be inclusive. And that's also not what we want to do, right? So we need a right balance, and that's not easy to achieve, I admit. Huh? So that was the first cliché about fairness and inclusivity. Second thing, AI can do everything very well. And I want also just pay attention to the picture that I will show. So this one. So if I ask you all to count how many Chihuahua faces you see on that picture, I'm pretty sure you can all do it. You will need some seconds, at max 1 minute, but you can get to the right number. Same with an AI model. It will be very accurate because that's a clean picture, clean quality data, easy to distinguish, and it will do it, unfortunately, much faster than you. Yeah, sorry to admit, but that will be the case. But now, if you think about it, what about these ones? Same question, how many Chihuahua faces do you see there? And I see again some smiles in the audience. Good, you're paying attention. So that's much more complex, right, for an AI model, especially if it was trained in these contexts, because the context is not the same kind of pictures, not the same quality. I mean, it will be very difficult and probably will be very bad at it. But you can all do it, right? So that's a good point. I mean, because we have also, more general learning that some models can have and will never have. And so when you think about that, you might say, oh, but okay, that's just funny. Where is the problem? Okay, we'll just be wrong in some cases. But remember the scoring application I was talking about. What if cameras then start to score you, but they score it and they are not doing it correctly, then okay, your scores will also be bad. So you see a bit where I want to come. And I already hear some of you more skeptical and saying, Benoît, that's just one example, you really choose one which is really made on purpose to prove your point, right? But my point is, that's not that uncommon, in fact. So you can find those things happening several times, and you would not imagine before seeing it that indeed those animals could look like other kind of objects of our daily lives. And the thing is, it doesn't stop to images. Obviously, I was using those examples with you because that's really easy for an audience, but it also happened with any kind of data, sound data, tabular data. Pay attention, because sometimes something that we wouldn't realize, an AI model can be really tricked by it. And the third example that I want to bring is AI might be also seen as always better than human. I think I already convinced you that's not the case. But here you see big names, OpenAI, okay, a few years back, have very fancy model to detect that an apple is a Granny Smith, but then you can easily, and humans with being very imaginative, they can really easily trick it. And you see, just a post-it, and it's very convinced, even more than in the first step, that the confidence is like 99% it's an iPod. And that can give some very concerns to companies. Why? Because in terms of reliability, but also security. Again, imagine that with those cameras filming you in the streets, then someone just put a post-it behind you and say that you are a bad guy, then the AI system could just analyze and say, oh, that's a bad guy. You see what I mean? Not saying that it's happening, but could happen. So we need to be careful, to pay attention to that. And Dirk, I think you have also some very visual examples.
Yes, Benoît, and thanks for showing some of the cases where the results of an AI system need to be questioned. But we, as users of these systems, also need to make sure that we are critical towards what the content that is generated. I'm sure that all of you have seen images generated by AI, and I'm sure that all of you will recognize that sometimes it's easy to see that these are generated, other times it's much more difficult. And a lot of the times these images can be humorous, they can be creative, they can inspire sometimes, but sometimes they can also be harmful. Like in this last picture, where a picture of an explosion near the White House was generated by AI, and when this was made public, it of course went viral, and you can imagine that this caused quite some panic. So it's important when you use an AI system that you as a user are critical, that you verify the sources, and that you stay on top of things and make sure that you put the results of it in the right perspective. Let's go to last cliché, and that is that AI systems don't need to be secured. And this might sound a little bit strange, but organizations protect their infrastructure. They make sure that they have a data platform that is secure. They make sure that their applications are secure. But within these applications run AI solutions, in fact, and a lot of the times organizations are not specifically paying attention to the specific threats that an AI system can have. And in fact, 70% of organizations adopting AI solutions have already had security breaches due to these AI systems. Think about prompt injection, think about jailbreaking, think about model evasion. All of these things are really typical security risks of an AI system that cannot be solved by protecting your infrastructure or your data or your applications, and need to be embedded within the security governance that you have throughout your system. Now, in the end, it is all about trust. Benoît, maybe we should have a look at some specific examples that we have at Proximus.
Yeah, exactly, Dirk. So on Proximus side, I mean, we are developing quite some AI use cases, as you can imagine, to optimize internal processes. And here I want just to illustrate that with one example that happened not so long ago. So we were in discussion with the business team responsible of optimizing the efficiency of call centers within Proximus. And as you can imagine, during those brainstorming sessions, we have a lot of ideas that are coming from all over the place. And some ideas can be, okay, let's use the transcript of those calls and then categorize mainly what was the conversation about, what was the problem, about which product was it, and so on, so that we can automate that part, then do reporting and see if there are trends coming in, if there are more topics that are with a lot of questions from customers, and so on and so forth. And that's a valid use case, right? There is no issue with that. Individuals are protected. But what if now, coming again to a scoring, what if we would use those transcripts to also score the agents, the call center agents that were doing the call with those customers? And then, again, we are a bit in the similar situation as at the beginning. Those scores, what will it be used for? Well, the intent initially was, it can be used for coaching and for personal development, which is a nice goal, right? Because then you could see indeed some people not very, maybe used or good at a certain product, and we could foresee to have a training on that. But you can already see a bit the risk associated with it, because maybe that scores that will be existing at some point might be used for other purposes, like also performance evaluation, whatever, which will then also have an impact on the person itself, not in a good way, but also maybe sometimes to take some actions on it. And so, voilà, here that was just illustrating, and in that case, what we said as a developer team is, pay attention, be careful, because it's also our role to say we don't want to go that way because that would not be aligned with our values. And that's one example from Proximus, so telecom sector, but it does not limit to that, right, Dirk?
Yes, indeed. I think it's clear that ensuring trust and fairness is something that needs to be done in AI systems in all sectors. Imagine a healthcare system where an AI system proposes a treatment or tests for a specific patient, and that model or the results are not made in a transparent way, so it's not clear why these results or these tests or this treatment is proposed. That system won't be trusted. Imagine a system within the financial sector where you have a system that evaluates data and detects fraud. If that system does not protect the privacy of the data that it processes, it won't be trusted. And even more if you look at utility systems that can be AI-driven, that really have an impact on the environment or could have an impact on the persons and the people that are in the surroundings. If these systems do not clearly protect the safety of this environment and of these people, these won't be trusted. So in the end, it's all about trust. Now let's have a look how to get there. You can imagine there's a lot of things that you need to take care about. It's not that simple to come to a system that is really acting in a responsible way. So maybe we should start by breaking this down in some building blocks and talking about the building blocks to build a responsible AI system. And it all starts, of course, with the data platform. I've mentioned it a few times before, setting up a robust data platform, making sure that it is secure, making sure that you get past data silos, making sure that you can tackle infrastructure challenges, and in that way have a platform that can get data from various sources in a repeatable way, and providing qualitative data for the upper layers is really the foundation of a responsible AI architecture. On top of that, you see the application layer, where we can build scalable applications that can take that data and bring it in a meaningful way to users across different environments.
Yeah, and even on top of that, so once you have your application, you can also see what kind of additional value you can put on it by leveraging AI. But that's very important that everything is already there as a prerequisite or a foundation so that you can also really leverage the power of it. And doing all those in a governed way, which allows you and your company to stay in those responsible AI framework, that's very important. And so that comes along with being secure, allowing automation and scalability, but in a good way and in a governed way. And so in that extent, we were discussing a bit about biases for the models and fairness, but I mean, it's true that we can never eliminate all those biases. But what can we do, Dirk?
And yes, and I think it comes all down to that last item that you touched upon, governance, let's say. And I think a lot of the organizations already have some data governance in place. Typically, this will start by setting up a framework that brings together the technology, the people, and the processes that run through this in a controlled and a transparent way, to make sure that the data that you have within that data platform is qualitative and can be used to processing for AI further up in the stack. That there is clear ownership assigned to that data, so that there is really responsibility of certain aspects of the data, and that somebody is really accountable for that, and of course that you have a secure foundation where your data is kept. But it doesn't stop there.
No, indeed, as you can already feel it, and probably from the previous slide. So that's something that probably you already started, and it also came with the GDPR rules and constraints that went with it. But now you might have heard about the EU AI Act, right? Which will also, it came into application. You have 2 years still to make sure that you follow the guidelines and that you are compliant with it. And that will also call for some specific governance attached to it. And obviously it goes hand in hand with the data governance. It's not something that is completely isolated, but that's also, it requires a dedicated focus as well. And so if we think about all those dimensions we mentioned before, how can we ensure that? It's by transparency also goes with documentation, making sure that documentation is done along the process, that we have also enough testing for security, for the biases and for the fairness of those models, and then put a nice also monitoring in place. Because it's not, because during the development you secured it and you check the biases and so on, that it will not evolve over time. After all, it all depends on the data that will flow through it, and that data also can change and drift over time. So very important, and there are more to it, but we only have a limited amount of time, but just be pragmatic in that approach, and you can also start building it step by step. And maybe just because that's still quite theoretical and we would like to illustrate it with one concrete example, Dirk, can you explain what we did with one of our customers?
Absolutely, and I'll talk about a case at Agoria, where we are building some AI-infused applications, in fact, that are running on top of the data that is already available within the organization. Now, Agoria already has a robust data governance system in place, including classification, with specific sensitivity labels, also including a very good focus on making sure that the users are aware of the risks and that they are aware that they are handling sensitive data. But building AI on top of this data, of course, exposes it in new manners. In fact, and there are different risks that are implied with that. And to implement an AI governance model very practically, we use a 4-way method. First of all, we start by thinking about those risks. What are the risks of exposing the data to this AI solution? We identify these risks, and we go test them. We do stress testing. We search the edge. We do red teaming to make sure that we see where the boundaries of the system are, and when the system starts to act in an irresponsible way. As a second step, we measure things, and typically in the first instance, this will be in a manual way. We just test the system, we see the results, and we try to measure how impactful this can be. Further on, we can automate that and make sure that we can put some monitoring in place of these measurements. And then a very important third step is mitigation, making sure that we put safeguards in place to make sure that the AI acts in a predictive way to some part, and making sure that the results are responsible, and we set up the necessary boundaries for the system to make sure that the results are according to what we expect it to be. And then this last step, operate, of course, probably is the most important, because this system will continuously evolve. The data will change, which means that everything that is built on top of it will also change. So we need to make sure that we continuously monitor the system, and that we have a plan in place when the system goes out of bounds, let's say.
Indeed, and we could talk a lot about it, and we would be also happy to get your questions, so that's why we'll round up here, I think, Dirk. And we will leave you with some takeaways. And not to have too many to remember, we stick to 3. So maybe a first one, Dirk.
Yeah, and as a first one, and this is an obvious one, as any tool, AI isn't inherently good or bad. It's the way that you use it. And in the end, making sure that you build a responsible AI system is a responsibility that we need to take, and making sure that when we use it, it is used in the right way.
Yeah, maybe one concrete example. Think about the hammer. Is that a bad or a good tool? I mean, it's just a tool. It has a scope of application. Same for AI. So that's why it's important that it's also documented, in which case it applies and in which case it does not apply. A second thing that I would like you to remember is that it's a common effort, basically. If you want to have an impact with responsible AI, you need also to change somehow or to put it in the company culture. And that goes at every levels of the organization. It can start with developer, it can start with top management or middle management, but in the end, all of them needs to be somehow aware of what it means, what are the risks associated of neglecting responsible AI, but also what are the advantage of embracing it.
Indeed. Yes, and I think really culture is the most important enabler to set up responsible AI within an organization. But culture, of course, is not enough. We need structure. We need to make sure that we have a very specific, documented approach towards governance, and making sure that you have governance in place will make sure that you can build solutions that not only will comply to the business values that you want to achieve, but also comply to the social values that are needed for these systems.
Proximus next. Think possible.